6. Exploration is perilous. Though many of the modern kingdoms bray of their triumph over the rending and the manifestation of their grand destiny, the college views these paper monarchies as they truly are, children playing castle in the crumbling remnants of a much greater civilization. It has also become surpassingly clear over the years that the lasting effect of the rending on the human psyche is fear. Our race may never be free of the terror that took root when the very ground beneath our feet became our enemy, the source from which our nightmares sprung to life. After a good rest, filled with the contented and happy feeling of being in my own enclosed space with a full stomach for the first time in this world, I awake refreshed and ready to cautiously approach my next challenge. I need to further explore the cavern, gather more information on my situation and try to identify my next prey. Before that, however, there is something else I want to try first. After eating, Gandalf informed me I had unlocked a basic profile of the Spinetta Lacertos. I haven't yet tried to access this profile. It's time to experiment and see if I can learn something. Unlock. Access profile. Open sesame. Spinetta Lacertos. Spinetta Lacertos. Thorn lizard, spines are sharp and contain mutated venom. Woo, there you go. So the Spinetta Lacertos is translated to thorn lizard, and what is the rest of this information? The spines are sharp, contain venom. Isn't that obvious the first time you look at the lousy thing? Well, it's only the basic profile after all. Perhaps if I can hunt and consume more of them, I'll be able to access a more detailed profile with more useful information. With that out of the way, it is time to pursue the next task. Emerging from my nest, I make way across the roof to the rock pool. A now familiar scene greets my eyes. A collection of monsters, types I have seen before, loiter at the water's edge, warily guarding against each other whilst drinking from the glowing pool. In fact, with my newly improved +2 eyesight, the pool seems to be glowing slightly more brightly than it did in the past. The curious thing to be about this situation is that all these monsters are here to drink, yet I have not, in the several days I've been here in this monster ant body, felt thirsty. Since I am also a monster, just as these creatures are, what compels them to drink the water from the pool when I feel no urge to do so? Is there something different about them, or me? The next mission today is to investigate. I will take a bold, brave, possibly stupidly suicidal step in order to shed some light on this mystery. Continuing to move in my almost habitual slow method, I creep across the ceiling to the nearest wall, make my way down it and onto the cavern floor. Then, slowly at first, but with growing confidence as each step propels me forward, I approach the pool. First to notice me is a lizard hound, the wolf-looking creature with a long reptilian tail. There really is a large proportion of lizard-like creatures here in this place. The huge bipedal crocodilic monster and the spiked lizard I hunted earlier have some form of reptilian features. Is this some form of pattern? When the hound sees me, it immediately begins to growl, shocking me slightly, but then something odd happens. As I continue to approach, the hound begins to back away slowly and make ground for me, almost as if they were afraid. I watch the wolf carefully and continue to approach the pool. As I step further and further into the light emitted from the pool, another heaving mass of centipedes becomes aware of my presence. Their reaction is very different. As soon as they see me, the slithering, clacking tangle of creatures begin to hiss furiously and writhe over each other. With even more speed, one of the creatures emerges from the tangle and slithers forward on its spindly legs a few meters towards me. Then it begins to posture, hissing and clacking with sharp-looking mandibles and claws. However, it doesn't approach or attack. Phew, I was terrified when they started heaving. There must be 6 or 7 of the horrible things piled over there. If they tried to attack, I would have to escape with all my might. Luckily, the peace of the water source held. There is only one reason that the survival-minded me would risk coming into the open here, only one reason that I would show myself in front of all these creatures who could kill me so quickly. Not even one time have I seen a creature approaching, drinking or leaving the pool be attacked. Not even once. I saw and heard plenty of conflict during the 2 days I spent scouting the armor lizard, but I never saw any conflict here. There is something important about this water source, and I don't think it has to do with hydration. After all, I still don't feel any need to drink. Monster physiology in this world does not seem to be simple. I continue to approach until I reach the edge of the pool. The glow is so bright here up close, it's difficult to see into the water, even with +2 eyes. The pulsing lines on the floor of the cavern seem to converge towards the center of the water source, right at the bottom of the pool, and the most intense light originates from that juncture. The water itself seemed to flow and move in strange, concentric circles, despite the lack of current or propulsion of any kind. Almost like a lava lamp, the pool seemed to have a motion and swirl all of its own. Ignoring the continued hissing and posturing of the stupid centipedes, I lower my mouth to the water and taste. It burns. Holy moly, that burns. What is this? Hydrochloric acid. A fiery sensation enters my mouth and flows straight through my 3 body segments to my stomach, from which the heat begins to permeate my bloodstream until my carapace itself feels like it's on fire. Yeouch. This is what you creatures have been coming here for. This painful, burning water of death. What is wrong with all of you? Is this the cavern of masochists? The burning sensation gradually subsides and I can't help but stare at the other creatures around the pool incredulously. What the hell are you all doing here? Many pairs of eyes stare back at me. I feel self-conscious now. I once again examine the slowly churning water before me, the dense light seemingly suspended within, like jellyfish coils, see-through and yet not. Pausing, I carefully analyze my own condition. I don't feel worse in any way. I hurriedly open my status and check my health. No change. Strange. This is seriously weird. What on earth is the attraction these monsters feel to this stupid pool? It must be important, otherwise why would there be this unspoken truce at this place? No answers seem to be forthcoming. It isn't like my fellow guests at the pool are in a talkative mood. Feeling more puzzled than before I'd tasted the water, I prepare to leave. But before I do I can't resist one more sip. Gah, it burns. Pee-tooey. Nyar. Peef. Peef. Ah, horrible. Curiosity killed the cat, as they say. I being to leave by first backing away from the pool slowly, watching for any reaction from my fellow drinkers. Most creatures seem mildly relieved to see me go, moving to take up the space I abandoned and returning to their drinking. The stupid centipede is still snapping and posturing at me as I leave. I can almost hear it flinging insults at me as it scrapes at the cavern and pretends to start charging at me. Back at you, dumb centipede. As soon as I reach the comfort of the shadows I spin and race to the wall, not slowing until I have achieved my most secure position, hidden in the deep shadows along the outer edges of the cavern roof. Ah, home. I won't be leaving again anytime soon, I hope. Now that I've somewhat investigated the mystery of the water pool, it's time to explore this cavern further and begin to map this cave network using my new tunnel sense. I continue to move in the shadows around the edges of the cavern, avoiding the more dense areas of light veins, weaving between pillars of dark stone that stretched from the floor to the ceiling, as if spears had pierced through the ground or plunged down from above. Following this pattern I move further from the pool and my own nest than I have before. Along the sides of the cavern I can see tunnels branching off into the darkness every now and again, some large and some small. I approach a few of them and feel strange air wafting through. Who knows what is lurking within these strange tunnels? I move ahead for another 10 minutes, making slow but steady progress. I can see the cavern has begun to widen further so that I can no longer see both sides at once. I start making cautious passages across the center to check both sides as I make my way. Whoa, a huge tunnel entrance appears before me. Perhaps 30 minutes travel away from the pool, this entrance is massive, spanning almost from the floor to ceiling of the cavern and just as wide. It clearly tilts in a downwards direction, heading deeper into the earth. But there seems to something strange about the way the stone here is shaped. Is that stairs? 7 cohabitation. These are absolutely stairs, right? Tiny eyes boggling, I approach the cave entrance in order to closely examine these stairs. It definitely appears as if these stairs have been carved directly into the rock. Now who exactly would be responsible for carving stairs into solid rock, Anthony? Why, humans, of course. Human civilization. This is the first tangible evidence I've seen that any sort of humanoid creature exists in this new world. Fantastic. I can't help but be excited and also a little nervous. I wonder what sort of fantasy-like people live here. Will I see dwarves, elves? The idea of voluptuous elf ladies is almost enough to make me giddy. This is getting more and more interesting. Why would they bother to carve stairs into this tunnel and not the others? The answer is almost self-explanatory. This is a very frequently used tunnel, therefore they have made it more convenient to travel down here. This means it's likely there may be more stairs nearby, but leading up instead. Perhaps a path to the surface. I quickly crawl down the wall and approach the stairs leading downwards. Wow, this is actually the first chance I've had to compare my size to an object I can relate to in my previous life. If we can assume that people in this world are roughly the same size as those in my old world, then by comparing my size to the stairs I'll be able to make a rough estimate of how large I am. All I have to do is hop onto these stairs. I think I'm a little smaller than perhaps I first thought. Judging by the height and length of each step, I can say I'm probably only tall enough to come up to a full-grown adult's knee, and I'd be roughly as long as a full stride, so perhaps a meter. But wait, that means all those monsters who looked terrifying and massive to me, from a human perspective, would actually be fairly small. The wolf creature would be almost waist height, the thorny lizard is even smaller than I am, about the size of a badger, and the terrifying, enormous croca beast would be less than shoulder height. Are all the monsters in this area actually very weak? Thinking logically, it would be a great thing if they were, since I probably would not have been able to survive this long if they were strong. This does raise the possibility of there being much stronger, larger and more powerful monsters elsewhere in these tunnels. I'll be doing my best to avoid those then. May our paths never cross. Okay, since the more powerful creatures probably live deeper, since that's how it works in games and this world is so strangely game-like, I will operate on the assumption that the safer places are closer to the surface. I resolutely turn away from the tunnel and begin to move further into the cavern. Yes, I can see more signs of modification here and there. Every now and again there is a step carved into the floor to make passage more easy, and I also notice carved areas at about human head height on the walls at fairly regular intervals. Are these perhaps for holding torches and illuminating this space? In fact, the further I travel, the more signs of civilization I see. The ground is starting to slope upwards more and more as well. Perhaps the surface is actually very close. Looking around, I can see that there are very few tunnels branching off the main cavern at this point, not even small ones. Also, the pulsing veins of light along the walls are further apart and thinner, making the space a little darker than further into the cavern. Perfect for a stealthy existence like me. I'll keep exploring. My heart is pounding in my chest now. I might actually get to see a person from another world. I have so many questions. What do they look like? What race are they? Do they know magic? Is there some sort of adventuring guild that goes dungeon exploring? Maybe I'll be able to communicate with them somehow. Perhaps sign language or some form of interpretive dance will work. This could be breakthrough in human and monster relations. How often would they have seen a human mind trapped in a monster body? Possibly I'm the first of my kind. The cavern is becoming more narrow, the steps more frequent and the slope steeper the further I travel. Actually, is that? I think it is. Sunlight. My antennae wave excitedly in the air as they get their first taste of dim, reflected sunlight. The surface must be extremely close now. I continue scuttling forward, excited to get a taste of the surface air on this new world. Gradually I can see a source of light ahead, reflecting off the stone and diffusing into the cavern. Ooh, more human construction. It look almost like a wall of some kind. I shift my head to try and get a better view. My eyes seem to work even worse than usual under the effect of natural sunlight. I may need to get closer. Yes, it seems like some sort of wall constructed against the side of the passage. There are small window slits carved into the stone, presumably so someone behind the wall can see and attack out. This is perhaps a guard room. It would make sense if you think about it. They would put a guard room here so they can monitor the entrance to the dungeon and fend off any monsters that approach the surface. There is probably a guard in there right now. Even as I'm thinking that, a bright red light suddenly shines through the windows in the wall and I can hear rapid movements, as if someone is scrambling up from a chair. Suddenly two people emerge from behind the wall, standing on a raised stone platform perhaps a meter off the tunnel floor. It's humans. Real humans. I'm slightly sad they aren't elves, but hey, people. They appear to be wearing some kind of metal armor with black leather underneath. They both have swords at their waist and tight boots laced up their shins, also black. Judging from their figures, it appears as if one is male and the other is female. The female guard seems to be holding a crystal of some sort in her hand. That is emitting a bright red light. Perhaps that is how they detect monsters approaching. It looks as if they are searching the tunnel, trying to identify the threat. Must be hard to find me with my stealth on, I suppose. Suddenly the male raises both hands and incredibly, they begin to glow with a bright, burning light. He appears to close his eyes to concentrate as the light forms into strange shapes or runes that slowly revolve around his hands. I'm stunned senseless. This is magic. Real magic. Holy Gandalf, Gandalf. Magic is possible in the world after all. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I wonder if these people could teach me. After only a few seconds the guard thrusts both his palms forward and the cavern erupts in light. Great flames burst out from the strange sconces in the walls, bathing the tunnel with heat and chasing the shadows away. The second guard holds the red crystal forward and the light begins to focus and illuminate the threat. Which is, me, ellipsis dot. What the hell am I doing? The female guard rapidly slips the crystal into a pouch attached to her belt and rips a crossbow off her back whilst the male locks eyes with me and once again raises his hands. He doesn't look friendly, Gandalf. Run 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 run. Anthony, you stupid idiot, what the hell are doing waltzing up to monster guards when you are a freaking monster? My 6 legs start pumping in overdrive as I start running like crazy to weave through the rocks further into the tunnel. The harsh lights from the flaming torches burns my eyes, making it hard to see, but I can't slow down at all, causing me to stumble and miss my footing. I can hear shouting and footsteps pounding on the stone behind me, but I don't turn to look. A blast of heat explodes on my right and another on a rock just in front of me in rapid succession. These are fireballs, right? Fire magic. Have mercy on me, I'm just a tiny ant. I can only continue to run at max speed, weaving behind rocks and pillars in order to seek shelter. Go 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 go, Anthony, you moron. If I survive this, I'll bathe myself in my own acid as punishment for this idiocy. I'll even drink from that damned pool. A crossbow bolt slams into the stone directly between 2 of my legs as I run, spraying stone shards into my carapace. Holy moly, that lady can shoot. I need some help. I need a distraction or something. Maybe. Running at this speed, I've quickly made my way back to the wider cavern, and smaller tunnel entrances branching off this main cavern are appearing here and there. As I run, I try to pass close by and frantically wave my antennae to detect any scent coming from them. Nothing from the first. Nothing from the second. Come on, you stupid. Yes. From the third I detect the disgusting smell I'm looking for. Without pausing, I screech to a halt, turn my back zone to point deep into the tunnel and immediately fire off 3 quick bursts of acid. As I do so, I take the chance to glance at my pursuers. Duck. Shooting out my legs, I flatten myself to the stone as another bolt zips just over my head, smashing the stone behind me. This isn't looking good, Gandalf. 8 Titus. Titus sat heavily behind his desk. The desk was similar to the man in many respects, unadorned, rough-hewn, and solid. Thick boards of stone wood he'd harvested himself in the second strata made up the surface on which he worked. The desk had to be joined together since he couldn't find a nail that would go through the stuff. The wood was stubborn, unyielding, that's why he liked it. Gripped in his thick, ungraceful fingers was a folded piece of paper, a letter, covered in angry and insulting scrawl. Another letter of complaint from the Mercenary Union, Tyria chapter. Titus reached inside his legionary coat pocket with his free hand, withdrawing a smooth metal box attached to his belt by a chain. Placing down the letter, he used both hands to place his fingers just so, frowning when he needed 4 tries to position his thick fingers correctly before the box opened with a snap. From within the case a blue glow spilled onto the desk and briefly illuminated Titus' face as he opened the case and stared hard at the contents, then snapped it shut, placing the case back into his inner pocket. He opened a drawer, removed a fresh piece of paper, collected his pen and began to compose a reply. Karen, as stated in the initial announcement 5 days ago, ambient mana levels within the dungeon are climbing and continue to do so. It is the opinion of the Legion that a wave is likely to occur within a week, but as you know, these predictions can be inaccurate and a wave can break with very short notice. In the interest of keeping your members alive, we have exercised our right to control dungeon access in the city of Lyria and will be undertaking aggressive action to ensure the safety of the citizens. If some of your parties are unable to conduct their activities in the dungeon during this time, I regret to inform you that I don't give a damn. After the wave is finished or when ambient mana levels return to normal, your members will once again be granted access to the dungeon, not before. Get stuffed. Titus. Commander, Legionum Abbaci, Lyria. Perhaps not his most diplomatic missive, Titus mused, but he was never very good at playing nice with idiots. One of the main reasons why he hadn't wanted this job. Almost against his will, his eyes slid to the corner of his office where, tucked behind a cabinet gathering dust, was an enormous battle axe leaning against the wall. Almost 6 feet long from head to haft, the thick metal didn't look as if it had been polished in years. Sighing, Titus once more turned to his letter, folded it, sealed it with wax and placed it in his mail tray for one of the auxiliaries to deliver later in the day. As he reached for the next letter of complaint, this one from the Minister of the Path, he heard the sound of feet pounding on stone, growing louder as several figures approached his office. Titus could feel the blood stirring in his veins. Perhaps he could avoid his paperwork today. 10 minutes later he'd arrived at the forward garrison, blasting open the massive doors with a single hand. He advanced into the building like a storm. The soldiers on duty, legionaries all, saluted respectfully as he passed by, fists crashing into armored chests and heads lowered wherever he went. Without speaking, the centurions on duty fell into step behind him as he marched through the stone plaza towards the breach in the earth that was the dungeon entrance in Lyria City. The opening was 4 meters wide and similarly tall, wide enough for supply carts and large groups to pass through on extended expeditions. The space around the entrance was flat stone floor for 30 meters in every direction, then a circular wall 3 meters high surrounded it, manned by archers and mages at all times, creating an open killing floor for any monsters who surged out of the tunnel. Titus stared at the rent in the ground for several long seconds before he stepped down, submerging himself in the darkness. He prevented himself from inhaling as deeply as he wanted to, bringing the dungeon air and its rich mana into his lungs. Instead, he trailed his hand across the stone, his thick skin scraping on the rock as he walked. Down the steps he could see the first of several guard stations, each usually manned by 2 legionaries, was now fully complemented with a team of 5. They turned to salute him as he passed but were disciplined enough to use the silent salute here beneath the earth, bringing their right fist into the open palm of their left in front of their heart. Their commander gave them a nod before he moved forward past the next 3 posts until he reached the first. 10 legionaries occupied the wall here, 2 mages took turns to maintain the flame that illuminated the tunnel. As he approached, with 2 centurions still in lockstep behind him, he found the woman he was looking for inside the guard post, poring over maps on the table with some of her soldiers. She saw him approach and dismissed her people before saluting. "Commander Titus." "Tribune Aurelia." Titus returned the salute before joining her standing at the table to glance at the maps. All maps of the first strata, passages and mana concentration points marked clearly with neat organized writing. Wouldn't those idiots at the Merc Union love to see this level of detail on their guides? They could triple their prices. "What is the situation, Tribune?" "Commander, 15 minutes ago the monster approached this guard station before fleeing. The guard team has signaled the centurion on duty before pursuing into the staging cavern." "Fled?" Titus grimaced. It was rare for monsters in the first strata to show enough intelligence to flee danger. Far more common for them to charge forward blindly and fight to the death. This was last thing he needed immediately before a wave. "How are preparations for the wave defense going?" "The defense is being readied on schedule, Commander, though I have taken the liberty of advancing the timeline in response to this recent incident." Titus grunted. "Good. I'll be joining the suppression expedition this time." Aurelia blanched. "With respect, Commander, perhaps you would be best deployed." "We both know where I am best deployed, Aurelia. Something feels off, so I'm going down with the expedition." Aurelia slowly nodded and sighed. This stubborn old man was incapable of making life easy for himself. A whole legion of troops who would gladly plunge into the dungeon for him, but he still chose to go himself. She shook her head. This was why he was the best. From down in tunnel, movement could be seen as 5 people advanced out of the gloom at the darker end of the tunnel and into the blazing firelight. 2 of the members were limping slightly, supported by their comrades. All of the soldiers were filthy, blood and bone, none of it theirs, covered their armor. Titus stepped out of the guard building and went forward to greet his legionaries. As they saw him approach, they immediately stopped to salute, remaining still until he quickly waved them down. "Stop that. What are your injuries?" The 5 of them grimaced. "Nothing serious, Commander. We were taken by surprise and sustained minor cuts and poison status." "Get to the medicus immediately. We need every soldier fit for duty." "Tell me, were you able to slay the monster?" The soldiers paused before shaking their heads. Titus clenched his jaw. "Damn it. Who were the 2 who first saw the creature?" 2 of the soldiers, 1 male and 1 female, raised their hands. "Come with me. 9 to live is to learn." "Hi Anthony, are you a massive idiot?" "Why yes Anthony, I am a massive idiot. In fact, I'm the kind of idiot who dances up to a human guard station to say hello when I am, in fact, a horrible monstrous ant over a meter long." "Wow Anthony, you really are a king amongst all of the idiots, aren't you? If all of the idiots in the world were to hear of your incredible achievements in the field of stupidity, they may just organize a religion around you, worshipping you as their stupid god of all things stupid." "I agree. Ellipsis. Holy moly, I am lucky to survive that nightmare." Chased by those 2 soldiers, dodging crossbow shots and magic fire, I was able to find a tunnel that bore the distinct odor of those damned centipedes. Thankfully they were at home, and when I blasted acid into their tunnel they came boiling out, mad as hell. With over 10 of the horrible things bursting into the cavern, I was almost killed by the stupid centipedes before a few of them got hit by the fireballs and they turned and attacked the guards, giving me a chance to flee further into the tunnel. At this point 3 more guards turned up and they obliterated the centipedes, the gross insect threshing machines, and continued to chase me. I lured 3 packs of centipedes out, 3. before they manage to occupy those soldiers long enough for me to slip into the shadows and hide. I'll see those terrifying attack skills in my nightmares surely, flashing blades of light traveling from swords to chop monsters 5 meters away, blazing flames like a flamethrower shooting out of a soldier's hand to roast the centipedes. So scary. What can I do? Bite. No, flashing mandibles fly out of my face to bite enemies 5 meters away. What the hell, Gandalf? Well, experience is the greatest teacher, so they say. I've confirmed many things thanks to this misadventure, the existence of magic, the existence of human society, and exactly how weak I am compared to those professional soldiers. I've also confirmed how I take damage. After being blasted by stone shards and being scorched by the fireballs, my HP was reduced to 15, half. Thankfully my legs are still fully functional, but I can feel cracks in my carapace where the stone shards penetrated into my armor. I'll have to see how I can regenerate my HP. Perhaps it will have to recover over time, or will I have to heal my wounds manually somehow? This is a serious problem at this point. At least now I have a chance to secure additional benefits from this disaster. So many centipedes have been killed and their bodies were left out in open, totally ignored by the guards as they retreated. This is a golden opportunity that cannot wait. Those filthy corpses represent nothing less than a golden treasure, a heaped mountain of wealth. Biomass. I have to secure that biomass. I have to move fast too, since every creature in this place will be crawling over those corpses soon. Sure enough, I can already see some creatures making their way towards the piles of bodies. In order to minimize the chances of having to fight, I rush immediately to the bodies closest to the dungeon entrance. I'm on high alert in case those soldiers are coming back, but thankfully they aren't. Time to hustle. I snatch up a large chunk of centipede and dash towards a nearby crevice in the wall. I drop my food and immediately begin to excavate a small hole in the wall, stuffing my food into it and then rushing back to grab more. After 3 trips I can see that more and more creatures have emerged to fight for the resources and bloody combat has been engaged. Even centipedes have emerged from some side tunnels to try and eat the bodies of their fallen brethren. Yuck. It won't be long until the chaos makes its way up to where I am, so I quickly make another 2 trips before I remove the largest chunk and then bury the rest of the hole in the wall, hopefully hidden from sight. Then I stealthily return to my nest with my prize. I'm not sure where all these monsters are coming from, but they seem to be endless. More and more piled into the cavern, attracted by the noise and smell. Hopefully the racket dies down soon so I can go and retrieve the rest of my booty. For now though, I shall eat. All that running around has completely drained me, and hopefully I can restore my energy and health with a meal. Chomp. Ellipsis. Irk. Horrible. You have consumed a new source of biomass. Unguibus scolopendra, you are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Unguibus scolopendra unlocked. Ah yes, Gandalf with the hunting diversity bonus. As I continue eating, I open the basic profile and take a look. Unguibus scolopendra. Claw centipede, has strong claws and a venomous spike in its tail. Yep, the basic profile continues to show its uselessness. Claw centipede makes sense really, they are centipedes with claws after all. Come to think of it, doesn't that really lack imagination? Silent Gandalf. Not that I can blame you really, names are hard. You have gained 1 biomass. Phew, I've finally finished my meal. I quickly open my status and take a look. Name, Anthony. Level, 2, Might, 15, Toughness, 12, Cunning, 25, Will, 18, HP, 17, MP, 0, Skills, Digging level 3, Acid Shot level 2, Grip level 3, Bite level 3, Stealth level 3, Tunnel Sense level 1. Mutations. Eyes +2. Species. Hatchling Ant Worker. Skill points. 0. Biomass. 2. My health has started to recover. 2 whole points. This is fantastic news. As I continue to eat, my wounds will surely close over, returning me to the perfect picture of ant health. I'll have to spend my biomass as well. More mutations await. Ellipsis. That really sounds weird, you know. As a human, should I welcome mutating this much? I think I know what I want to improve though. Mutate acid +1 and antennae +1. Do you wish to improve acid and antennae? This will cost 2 biomass. Yes I do, but please no itching. Ellipsis. Herk. Gah. Damney. F-Zazithrap. Stupid itch. Using my forelegs, I continuously scrape my antennae clean, but it doesn't help at all. This is an action I've noticed myself doing more and more lately. I know that ants try hard to keep their antennae scrupulously clean and even have special hairs in the elbow joint of their forelegs to help remove dust and particles from their antennae, keeping them in tip-top shape. The cleaning does nothing to help protect from the maddening sensation that erupts every time I mutate, however. I also can't do anything about the searing itch in what I can only imagine as my acid gland, deep inside my body. I hate these. Finally. Phew. Now I have continued on my path of enhancing my senses by improving my antennae, which will increase my sense of smell and capacity to detect air vibrations. I have also taken my first step to increasing my combat ability by increasing the potency of my acid, which is my only reliable attack right now. Now I have to emerge, pass through the chaos and return with the rest of my treasure. As I pass through the cavern, attached to the ceiling, I can see that the action is beginning to calm down and monsters are establishing territory and starting to eat. This makes life easier to me. I make 4 more trips and manage to bring all of my stash back to my nest. I consider this an amazing success. Considering all the biomass that was available, I didn't get much, but I was able to secure this much with almost no risk, so I'm very satisfied. Time to eat. After I finish eating, I have gained another 2 biomass and 5 HP, but I choose to save these 2 points in the hopes I can gain 1 more and improve my vision once again. Maybe with the action dying down outside there will some crumbs left for a humble ant such as myself to collect. I'll have to wait. 10. The study of the bees. Albertin, answer your door, you deaf idiot. 2 young legionaries stood to one side, faces white with worry as they watched the Legion commander smash his massive fist repeatedly into a sturdy, iron-framed door so hard that dust fell from the cold stone ceiling into their hair. These 2 soldiers were the first to see the monster and also had by far the best look at it, so Titus had taken them immediately to the medicus for treatment and from there to the Legion keep of Lyria. Right now they were several floors below ground level and the air was thick with dust and moisture. To tell the truth, Titus hadn't been knocking for long, but it hadn't taken much for the huge man to run out of patience. Open this door, Albertin, or I'll burn your stupid books to warm my backside. Titus roared. The door was yanked open immediately to reveal a disheveled man in a brown robe sporting a hedge-like beard that appeared to stab forward from his face like a wall of spears. You wouldn't dare, Titus, you illiterate ape. There's 1,000 years of Legion history in here. The beard shouted back at the commander. Titus merely grunted. Good, you're awake, he said as he pushed the much skinnier Albertin out of his way and advanced into the chamber. I'm always awake, protested the scholar as he absent-mindedly scratched at his robes. What time is it? Titus simply shook his head and gestured for the 2 young soldiers to enter the room after him, which they did with some trepidation. The room was a mess, every surface dusty and heaped with piles of parchment, book and scrolls of all descriptions. Several tables and a corner desk occupied the center of the room, whilst around the walls were huge bookcases that stretched from the floor to the ceiling. Every shelf of every bookcase was heaped, stacked full of enormous leather-bound volumes, each labeled with intricate script on the spine. Casting a quick glance around the room, Titus stuck his head back into the corridor just long enough to bellow, "Cleaning." And as Albertin began to protest that there was really no need for cleaning and they always disturbed his concentration anyway, he simply ignored him and started speaking. Legionary Trainee Miran, Legionary Trainee Donnellon, this is the Legionum Abbaci Loremaster of the Lyria Legion, Albertin. We are here, Albertin, for you to consult the records and identify a beastie the 2 trainees saw in the dungeon today. Albertin peered at the 2 trainees doubtfully. Haven't expeditions been banned for a few days now? What could they possibly see on guard duty at the dungeon entrance that they couldn't identify? Have we stopped teaching legionaries what a thorn lizard looks like? If we have, that would be your responsibility as Loremaster, Albertin. Titus sighed. Albertin, we need you to identify an ant for us. The Loremaster froze. You mean, Formicity? Yes. Albertin's eyes drifted aimlessly around the room as he absorbed this information. After a moment he seemed to focus again and brought his attention back to the people present. Without a word he turned and moved to a wooden ladder propped against the wall in a corner of the room. With some difficulty he moved it to one to the shelves, propped it open and somewhat nervously climbed it. On the 7th shelf he reached for one of the volumes and withdrew it before climbing back down the ladder with some difficulty. Thump! The massive volume crashed into the table, spraying dust clouds into the air. The trainees could clearly see the word, Formicity, stitched in gold filigree on the cover of the volume. As Albertin retrieved the book, Miran turned to her commander hesitantly. Commander, I know we don't usually see any ant monsters under Lyria, but why is it so serious that we've seen one here? Donnellon also turned to listen to the answer. Titus cleared his throat. A single ant is weak, pathetically weak, but you will almost never face a single ant. They will swarm in the hundreds, thousands, even hundreds of thousands. They are far more cooperative than almost any other monster type. They are fearless, feel no pain, and are ravenous. An ant colony can sweep clean vast sections of dungeon, growing in strength, and if they are spawned in the second strata or higher, they can climb up to the surface in search of more food. An ant colony expanding onto the surface is a massive disaster. It has only happened twice, and whole kingdoms were burned to the ground before they were destroyed. In those cases, wheezed the loremaster, turning to the two young legionaries, the people were unable to react fast enough to the threat, as the ants are excellent at creating their own tunnels. They didn't climb out of the dungeon entrance but burst into houses, basements, and through castle prisons. They could be digging through the dirt around us right now. Alberton chuckled dryly as the trainees eyed the walls with suspicion. Now describe this creature for me and we'll see if we can know our enemy. As the two young soldiers began to describe the creature they had seen, Alberton began flicking through pages on the vast volume in front of him, muttering to himself. The trainees could see each page was covered in neat script and detailed drawings of different monstrous ant species, the recorded wisdom of generations of Legion soldiers. Large eyes, you say? Very unusual. At least we can rule out the Doralus species, thank the Legion, Alberton mumbled. Donnellan turned to Titus with an eyebrow raised. Doralus ants are almost completely blind, he explained, but a Doralus queen can lay over 1 million eggs a month, and their colonies can grow to 50 million individuals. Also, they are nomadic, swarming endlessly and devouring everything in their path. Think of millions of monsters crawling across the ceiling, bursting out of the walls and scrambling on top of each other to kill you. What does it matter that they can't see? Spraying acid to attract claw centipedes. Alberton frowned as he continued to flick pages. That is rare. Do you have anything, Loremaster? Titus asked. The coloring of the monster and the acid spraying are very distinctive features. We can be fairly sure this monster was some species of Formica, definitely a hatchling based on its size. However, there are a few odd features. The creature appears to have mutated its eyes, which is extremely unusual for an ant, also the very unusual show of intelligence to lure other monsters into the fight in order to secure its escape. Titus nodded. I agree with you, a regular ant hatchling has a cunning stat of 3 or 4, this ant's clearly is much higher. What else have you learned? We may have been extremely lucky here, Commander. In what way? You said it yourself, you will almost never see one ant operating on its own. We also know that ants will almost never spawn in the first strata, so how can we explain a lone hatchling being found so close to the surface? I posit that a nest raid has taken place lower in the dungeon, and a fairly new ant colony was too weak to repel it. As a result, some of the young were brought out of the nest and carried towards the surface where somehow this lone worker was able to hatch. So we've possibly been warned of the threat far earlier than we might have otherwise been, Titus mused. Correct. It's possible the queen spawned as little as 2 months ago. The thing that puzzles me the most is how did this lone hatchling ant worker, possibly the weakest individual monster in the entire dungeon, survive for any length of time? Based on the information provided, we can deduce that this ant has mutated its eyes at least once, possibly twice. How did it secure biomass? Why does it display a level of cunning far in excess what we would expect? These are very puzzling elements, Commander. I agree, Titus said, but being able to move against the colony itself is of far greater concern to me than one lone worker ant. We will need to organize a deeper expedition to find and eliminate this threat. The timing is terrible since we anticipate a wave soon. Alberton winced. That seems like more than we can take on ourselves, Commander. I agree, Titus said. The Legion will push into the dungeon immediately while you and I go to have a chat with your aunt. Alberton sighed bitterly at his commander's words, and as a team of cleaning staff filed into the room and immediately began shuffling his papers around to sweep, he could only sigh again, looking extremely forlorn.